live with that.
Right.
But what is but how, to your point, to sit with it for so long, why would they bring it up now unless it was
Right.
just at the boiling point where, I can't hold this anymore. It's
Right.
time for
Yeah.
me to come true. You talked about um, the guy, the case. I think that was what Jordy Chandler.
Mm-hmm.
His case came up, and Wade was feeling guilty about not being able to come to his aid when he knew,
Mm.
that he was going through the same things that he had gone through, but he
Mhm.
stayed silent.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and think of us. Let's flip the script a little bit. Let's make it
Mm-hmm.
a race thing.
Mm-hmm.
What if black folks were being oppressed and oppressed and oppressed, and white folks were getting by on their privilege and whatever it was, but they never spoke up and said anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And then at some point, like, I gotta say something.
Right.
I got. But then you get hit with all of this because of our love for our celebrities.
Yeah.
How you gonna come down on the king like this? How come we didn't say nothing about Elvis
Actually,
and Jimmy Lee?
Actually,
Uh,
speaking of that, not to cut you off, but I think it'll kind of lead into what you're saying. We actually got another comment from Mr. Beakley, and he said, I think sexual deviance is happening everywhere and all the time. I feel as though successful black men are constantly being targeted from throughout the economic spectrum. What do you think about that comment?
Yeah, I think, as I said, we use here is where the celebrity comes into play. The
Mm,
R. Kellys and the Michael Jacksons of the world,
Mhm.
they are high profile, but
mm,
the fact is, the reality is that this kind of crap is going on every day with John Doe and
Yeah.
Jane Doe
Anybody.
and
yep.
Child Doe
I mean,
every day.
look at the NFL owner
Oh.
who,
Robert Kraft.
yes, who
Mhm.
got caught up in that
Dude.
the
The
ring,
prostitution
right?
ring.
With
Right.
all the money, he prints his own money, and he
Right.
goes and gets caught in a damn massage parlor in a strip mall.
Yeah, but have
I
you
mean,
you noticed that story has definitely died down? We
Right.
don't hear.
Yep.
But if
Right.
it was somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
if it
Right.
was somebody who's a minority, oh, we'd still be talking about it.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
We'd definitely still be talking about it.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Or the times that those kind of things happen where it doesn't hit the light of any media at
Yeah.
all.
Mhm.
And it's happening right now as we're speaking.
Yeah.
Somebody is going through hell right now
Mhm.
in a similar fashion as the R. Kelly situation, or the Michael Jackson situation, or what. Somebody is teetering on the brink of disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but you have to also understand that you also have folks who have more access to influence than other people.
Mm.
So I'd be very surprised if anything comes of the incident with Mr. Kraft outside of maybe a fine and some community service. Now,
Mm.
in all fairness, most people who get caught up in those types of operations, if it's their first offense, they'll probably get just about the same thing.
Mhm.
But what I will say is that if that had been Michael Jordan, for example, or some other high-profile person, it probably would still be running, and they would probably be digging a little deeper into Mike's indiscretions if he had any. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Right.
there are some double standards out here, but I don't think I don't really see in this case where Mr. Kraft is going to get anything that would be outside of the norm, and certainly it was a stupid thing to do,
Yes.
and how do you justify that? And of
Mhm.
course people will, oh man, guys will be guys and all that other kind of stuff. But he's a married
Mhm.
man,
Yeah.
and
Oh, he's not married.
I'm sorry, he's not married.
No, he's not married. He has
Okay.
a girlfriend.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right. He has a
okay. A
girlfriend.
long-time
I'm sorry. That's right. A
girlfriend.
girlfriend. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Thank you for
Yeah.
correcting me.
That's okay.
Um,
You know, we got the
He probably
journalists
won't
in the
get
room.
that.
We need facts. We got to stick to the
she's
facts,
keeping a straight
man.
no chaser. That's right.
Right.
But still, I'm sure that went over real well with her.
Right.
Knowing that my man, my boo thing, or whatever they call each other, is out here doing this thing in a massage parlor.
Yeah.
And one thing I do have to do is go back for just a couple of minutes. We overlooked a comment that came in on the chat line from Gina, that when we were talking about the whole thing with sexually transmitted diseases, and we apologize, Gina, for overlooking you. It said the difference is an adult should use a condom when having sex when in a non-exclusive relationship. So even she goes back to the common sense factor.
Right.
If you know that you have some issues, whether you are you're trying to prevent becoming pregnant, or you are trying to prevent sexually transmitted diseases. And certainly, again, if that guy or that girl knows, well, normally when people aren't around, I'm oozing and leaking stuff, but I'm still going to, but I'm still going to go out here and do my thing.
Yeah.
Then you belong in handcuffs.
Yeah.
You really do. You belong in handcuffs. So I just had to bring up those two things, and we thank all of our chatters. You guys have been lighting it up tonight, and with some great comments. So please keep them coming. And Beezy, I'll go back. I cut you off.
Oh no, you're fine. No, that's really all I had to say about it. I always like to look into the different perspectives, and I just think it's interesting because in both cases, I can't make excuses for anybody, but both of these men had traumas that they never faced, they never got help for. I mean, and I know I'm not trying to, stretch this out because I know we're running out of time, but when I look at the R. Kelly abuse, and if you look at what happened allegedly in his childhood, he said that when he was abused by his sister, she would call him in from playing outside, wouldn't let him go outside and play, and he would just be in the house doing anything. And when he would do the slightest thing wrong, she would call him into the room, and she trained him and did all this stuff. And just the different things that his brother alleges that happened to him are kind of the same thing he's doing to the girls. And, whenever they make a mistake, they get punished. They're being trained. They're not allowed to go out. They have to cover up, things like that. So, one of the things that we're even talking about at the radio station is mental health in the Black community. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we have to start addressing these issues. This is, we had the episode where it was hurt people hurt people. Yeah. So, and unfortunately in the Black community, it's worse because we're not really the mental health help type of people. Yeah. Black people will do a lot of things, but you don't see them at a shrink. Yeah. So, I really just think that overall, as much as I want to see R. Kelly go to jail, I also think that he needs help. Yeah, he really does. I don't know. I know a jail cell is the place for him, but he needs help.
To be helped into a jail cell.
Yeah, they can help
and they can give him help in jail.
Right.
But one of the other things, and you guys are blowing it up tonight. We've got another comment. I struggle with their differences, no question about it. Yet Harvey Weinstein and all those other white media guys are walking free compared to the circus surrounding Cosby, Mike, and R. Kelly. And certainly you haven't heard much about Harvey Weinstein's case lately. And in my opinion, as you know, I did law enforcement for a long time before retiring. Anybody that's engaged in this type of activity needs to go to jail. I don't care whether you're black, white, or green. Yeah. When I look at the allegations that were against Mr. Cosby before he was found guilty, if you're drugging people, you got to go to jail. Period.
Yeah.
Period. If you're Harvey Weinstein and you are making those casting couch calls, as they used to call it, if you're doing that kind of stuff, you ought to go to jail. Period. If you're R. Kelly and you're stepping in the name of love with 13-year-olds, go to jail. Period.
I don't see nothing wrong.
Weinstein's going to he's setting out to stand trial on June 3rd.
Yeah, sure.
So he's going. Something's going to happen. So I guess when that pops up,
I think he'll be in prison.
We'll see.
I certainly hope so. I think that when you are doing this type of crap, the law should everyone needs some time in the penalty box. And so I don't think that any of these guys should get off. I mean, just like, R. Kelly, they should be talking about having Elvis in that conversation when you're talking about underage people. Anybody that's doing that kind of stuff, you don't deserve our respect and you don't deserve our hard-earned dollars because you're a creep. And now everyone has the presumption of innocence, and I get that. But once you have been found guilty and you've gone through the process,
That's it.
That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have any more patience with you.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think the sad
Right.
thing, what's happening right now with the whole Michael Jackson thing is, I mean, obviously because he's since passed, so
Right.
it's like this man just cannot rest in peace. Like, can we just let him rest?
Right.
But also, like, there's even petition. There's a petition out here in Vegas for Mandalay Bay to sever ties with the show. Cirque
Oh,
du Soleil, for
wow.
one.
Wow.
Yeah, they want supporters of the documentary want the company to, you know, sever ties with Cirque to stop the show and also to take out his statue.
Wow.
So, and that's been there for years, and I can't remember how long the
Wow.
show has been here.
Right.
But I mean, now you're having people say, "Well, I guess I got to go see the show now."
Right,
what if the
because
show
it's gonna be
does go
gone.
away? Yeah,
Exactly.
And
it's so
actually,
sad.
that's not the only thing. Actually, it came out on the news today that in Canada and New Zealand, they're not playing Michael Jackson on the radio at all
Which is just
anymore,
crazy.
which is
I
crazy.
know.
And that's coming. You all know that
Yeah.
backlash. I mean, Danielle, you and Amber are high profile media people, and you know that when that pressure starts coming in, particularly when those advertisers start pulling out, the station managers, they have to do what they have to do because
Right.
it's a business.
Right.
But I will say this before we give it to Thinbad to close it out. Ambezi, you were getting some comments that said you were right on point with the mental health thing, and you know, we certainly appreciate, you know, all of the great comments and all the great chatting that we got tonight. But before Thinbad closes us out, Danielle, tell us about how people can hear you on your podcast.
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
How can we reach you,
Yes.
sis?
We need to know.
Yeah, so shout out to my co-host Jazz. I hope she's listening right now. I told her that.
Hi,
wrong.
Jazz.
Hi, Jazz.
Hi,
But
Say what's up.
Hi, Jazz. Does
But
that sound like an
we-
Alcoholics Anonymous meeting?
Oh,
Hi,
yeah.
Jazz.
Hi, Jazz.
But we are hosts of The Feature. It's a podcast about film. So we talk
Awesome.
anything
Nice.
and everything film. So we've done many different episodes from anything and everything. Like we had a HBCU one, like is it reality
Nice.
versus are we fabricating HBCUs in film? We had one on Disney Channel movies winning Oscars.
No
What's one should have?
way.
So our next
Wow.
episode comes out this Sunday, and you have to tune in to see what it's about because I'm not going to tell you.
Hey.
So
Well,
How
if
can
you
they-
want
what's it
to,
called again?
it's called The Feature.
The feature.
Right.
Yes, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at
Awesome.
The Feature Show.
Awesome.
And we are
Awesome.
on SoundCloud and iTunes and Google Play.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Official like a referee's whistle.
That's right. And when we have our episode on film, please come back and talk to us.
I would
Yeah, I
love
need to come over there and talk to y'all because I am a film
Oh.
junkie.
Well, we're going to have you on
Junkie.
now.
oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Say
that'd be so
less.
much fun.
But
Let
no,
Let me know when you get
seriously,
to the
because
70s.
I don't know. You know, fun fact about your girl Ambezi. I'm SAG-AFTRA, so
No way.
yeah. So
Awesome.
every year, you know, before the SAG Awards, they
Right.
send us bunches of
Yeah,
films, and
films.
I literally sit up there like
Yeah.
watching all of them. So,
Yeah.
yes, let's chop it up.
I would love that.
And-
That'd be
and of course-
awesome.
yeah.
Thinbad, talk about your career, sir.
Yes,
Not
sir.
at all. I'm not saying a
Go
word.
ahead.
It's all. Oh no. But let me know when you get to do the Meteor Man movie. I was
Yeah, he's
a little bit in there. In the last 15 minutes, I was one of the Golden Lords.
Yeah.
That's how we might as well say that's how I got the name Thinbad. Don
Ah.
Cheadle
No
gave me that
way.
name. He said, "Man, you look like Sinbad, but skinnier.
Oh my god.
So we're gonna call you
That's
Thinbad."
hilarious.
So that's how we got the name Thinbad.
Love it.
That was it. It was Don Cheadle and Eddie Griffith. I said,
Oh,
"Thank y'all very
nice.
much."
No way.
Cool.
So I'm
That's
sure Eddie.
awesome.
I'm sure neither one of them are putting Meteor Man on their IMBD. But,
IMDb. You were so close.
yeah,
You
but
got
they might be. They might
Yeah.
be.
You
Yeah.
never
But
know.
this has been cool. This
Yes.
has
And
been
of
cool.
course-
Anytime you want to do some black exploitation stuff, I am there.
Oh, that would be an awesome episode.
Yeah.
Like, we
Oh,
would be a mess.
I've got all of those movies.
Right.
I watch them every month. Truck Turner,
Every
let
month.
me do it. Every month I sit down and say, I'm watching my stuff.
And I played Knight in my third grade class play.
Oh, that's
so that
beautiful.
Was my, yes, I was Knight.
You played Knight?
Yes, I was Knight.
And
As
night
in
fell,
opposed to
and
day?
he runs
Yeah.
across the
Yeah,
stage.
they said that Knight
Oh.
fell, and then I
I've
ran
seen
across the
that.
stage, man. I was very
And you
self-conscious
fell
about it.
across the stage.
No, I
Knight
ran-
fell.
Yeah, I ran across the stage. and of course, Ambeezy, shout